Hello.
When your mind is
Okay.
Well, on tonight's podcast, we have a fantastic guest in the form of Mr. Pete Oxley, founding member of Britain's leading. It's not quite a tribute because Hejira do not try to be or look like Joni Mitchell. What they do is interpret her greatest songs in the 1970s in the spirit of the songs with fantastic jazz musicianship. So it's great to have Pete here.
Well, thank you for having me. Pleasure
And I
to.
remember how much pleasure I got seeing you live on stage at Harrogate Theatre in May. And what surprised me most was that as a man who's only got 30 to 40 jazz albums, which I know by head of the population makes me in a tiny minority for having that many, it's still fairly poor. It's a poor reflection of the history of such a great form of music. So I'm
Mm,
very far from being a complete expert. But the more jazzy the gig got, you would have thought for someone who's not a natural jazz expert, although I do
mm,
like jazz, that I would have heard Woodstock or something of Blue,
mm.
something a little more in touch with the pop world. But instead, the more jazz Hejira got on stage, led by yourself, the more I enjoyed it, the better it got.
For me, that period, I mean, I started off listening to the earlier stuff. Like many people, Blue was
Mm,
the album that got me into Joni. And I love those songs because I was never really a big fan of the whole singer-songwriter thing. I've never been a fan of Dylan, to be honest. And I like James
oh,
Taylor. I think he's great. Paul Simon, a lot of his stuff. I mean, still crazy after all these years. It's still kind of a favorite album. But when I heard Blue,
mm,
I thought that Joni topped them all because she had such beautiful melodies and surprising harmonies. Much of those derived from her use of open tunings
mm,
and and great lyrics. Just always, there was never a song which disappointed me. And so I was sort of open to listen to more Joni. And then at some point, somebody played me Hejira, and and that was just another level of writing, in my view. The whole structures of the songs were more developed, and she was by then using jazz musicians. And not that it sounded like jazz, but from
mm,
what I understand, she was getting frustrated with her milieu of people she was hanging out with in her sort of folky singer-songwriter world, and she was looking for musicians to be able to interpret her sounds, her thinking, what she had in her head. And somebody said to her, "Well, you need to
mm,
use jazz
mm,
musicians." And somebody introduced her to Jaco Pastorius, and they totally hit it off. And and Jacko became a sort of integral part of her sound on those on those records from Hejira through to the tour of that live album, um, Shadows and Light. And then presumably Jacko introduced her to Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays and Michael Brecker. I'm assuming that, or anyway, she fell into that milieu of the top jazz players, and that created the sort of soundscape of those records from very much Hissing of Summer Lawns in 1975 through to Shadows and Light, which came out in 1980, which was the result of just one tour. She did one tour with those guys and produced that great record, which I think just came from one gig.
and what's surprising about Hejira, which is my favorite album, yeah, strictly speaking, Hejira isn't a jazz album. Mingus is closer to actually being
Yeah.
jazz than Hejira,
Hmm.
which is two albums on. And it's interesting because I think Mingus is probably the only album where she actually sounds almost totally jazz, but she still used jazz musicians to play albums which weren't totally jazz. It sort of makes me think that the spirit of the 70s was open to anything and didn't really stick to any genre.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I heard Hejira, I didn't think of it as a jazz album. I thought it was another Joni
Mm,
album with an incredible development in her writing from the earlier albums. And I didn't even know who those musicians were. I didn't know who Jacko was. And I think
mm,
when I got to hear Shadows and Light, I didn't know who Pat Metheny was. It was the sound of the record which captivated me. The sound, the arranging, and the
mm,
playing, and the whole soundscape, and particularly Joni's voice. I think she sounds absolutely incredible on Shadows and Light.
mm,
Um, for a live recording, it's they're all one takes as they are, because from what I've read, it's from one gig. It's not um, put together from a whole bunch of gigs on the tour. I think they only recorded that one concert at
mm,
Santa
mm,
Barbara Bowl. So it means they're literally all one takes. Unlike in a studio album, where very often multiple takes will be done and then songs will be edited together, or it might be the third take that you choose. With this one, that's how Joni sang. There was um, no digital editing possible from that period. So what you hear really is pretty much how they played, and it was just a fabulous record. Um, and by then, so there's 5 years in between Hejira and Shadows and Light. By then, I think Joni had opened herself up more to the jazz, as you say, with Mingus, which came a little before Shadows and Light. That is a lot more jazzy. Jacko and Wayne Shorter, they open up more in their playing. And so by the time of Shadows and Light, it sounded like Joni was really embracing the whole jazz thing. And there were some solos from Michael Brecker, and a little bit from Matheny, not much. Very little from Lyle, which is a shame.
mm.
He sounds very underused to me. I'm a massive Lyle Mays fan. Um, but still, nonetheless, the thing is, they were there to serve the song. That was their purpose, and that's a huge thing that I've taken for the Hejira band. Again, everybody in the Hejira are all virtuosic players as jazzers, but aside from that aspect of them, I was I chose those people because I knew they loved the music, and they would also have the same attitude. They're there to serve the song, not to be virtuosic soloists. Nobody has ever said to me in the year and a half that this band has been going, nobody said to me, "Oh, can I have another solo in such and such a song?" Everybody is completely aware the point of what we do as instrumentalists is completely to support Hattie and the whole soundscape of all the songs.
Mm. But I've got my esteemed colleague Charles Hutchinson who's going to ask you a question, Pete. Hold on.
Oh, great.
First of all, good evening, Pete. And I'm sorry I'm late. I was
Oh, hi,
told it's
Charles.
starting. I was told it's starting at 6:40. It turns out it looks like you've been chatting since 6:30. So, and plus I didn't have my computer with me, and I've been in. But good evening and welcome.
Good
I
evening.
don't know whether if Graham sort of talked about the background of starting, but of course you were originally in Oxford, and I did kind of wonder whether Woodstock might have inspired that. Of course, with a Woodstock being near Oxford, or am I just being trivial in asking that?
Well, I think you're conflating two Woodstocks.
I am indeed. I am indeed. Uh, in terms of how one plays now to an audience that appreciates Joni in a way um, that to take it into a specific field, if you like. I mean, one thinks of sort of singer-songwriter Joni, and actually, it's interesting that this particular phase is more than about being singer-songwriting, and it is about the musicianship, and that is something I guess that's distinctive about this, and that Hejira bring through to the concerts. So it isn't just about whether a voice sounds like Joni. It's more about what the songs, what you can do with them as jazz musicians.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. So when we started this band, or when I put this band together 18 months ago, initially it was literally going to be one gig. And already I selected great players who,
Yeah.
as I was just saying to Graham, actually, great players that not only were masters of their instruments, but would be there to serve the song. They had to be fans of the music. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called them. And then as it developed, as the band clearly became a project rather than just this sort of initial one-off thing, then I started writing arrangements of the music. And I was very aware to be sure to keep the melodies intact. So I don't think I've changed a single melody in any place, but sometimes I've done a little reharmonizing here and there, but also being really aware to keep the integrity of the song. That's just essential. I don't want them to become jazz songs at all. Just as when Joni was playing with these top jazz musicians, they didn't become jazz songs. They were still Joni songs played with great musicians who had the awareness, the musicianship to make the most of them. And really, from what I understand, this is why Joni started using jazz musicians, because they were able to expand on her ideas that she had been getting frustrated with her former colleagues not being able to do, from the more kind of folky background. So I'm hoping that what we've done is to pick up from that spirit of the musicians that she was using around the Shadows and Light and Hejira period, and to really I never said to Dave, can you make sure you play this line of Jacko's and this line? He just did them. They were the lines I wanted to hear. And but otherwise Dave plays his own thing, but kind of in the spirit of Jacko, but whilst not aping Jacko. And that's another thing. None of us are playing this like a tribute band. We take little lines here and there, but otherwise we're all kind of free to make it our own. But with that, as I say, that essential caveat that we must not lose the spirit of the original music.
How much would it change from concert to concert if we think of jazz being a freer form of music than many? How much is that
it's really difficult to answer that. I mean, I've thought about that a lot, and if I think about what I do, so Hattie is really playing the parts. She's playing on the rhythm guitar extremely accurately, which is great. So she's kind of a bedrock of the bass harmony of the songs. And even when I've done reharmonizations, I've quite a lot of the time Hattie can continue to do that, what she does, and by changing the voicings above it, I change the color of the chords and actually the chords sometimes, but it doesn't conflict with what Hattie's doing. But I'm playing a lot of lines behind Hattie, or Ollie is on the sax, and we'll be improvising. We won't be playing the same lines night after night. We're playing obviously within the structure, but just like on a jazz standard, you play within the harmonic structure. You can play like 100% different lines from beginning to end of a song, but still within the guideline of the harmonic structure. And it's a bit like that. We're playing 100% within the guidelines of the harmonic structure, but we're free melodically to do as the night feels. And you get inspired by the crowd, the different crowds, the different sound of the room, how everybody else is playing night after night. So anybody who's paying attention, if they come to different gigs, they'll hear a different performance of the same songs. Charles, can I just?
I've got a theory. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, can I just nip to pick up the charger? I can see my computer's about to die otherwise.
Very important.
Yeah, bear with me for 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Well, I'm just going to say that I have a theory which you may blow out the water. That the reason that Joni sort of suits jazz musicianship, she has a lot of sparkle and a lot of character. She just doesn't do the frivolous. There's no sweetener. There's no decoration. It's all very honest, and the honesty isn't just in her lyrics or in their style of singing. It's also in the structure of the song. And if there's one thing that jazz musicians are, as musicians, is honest. Any jazz that isn't honest isn't good jazz. Is that a reasonable theory?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I would say to take it to Hejira. I'm not meaning to draw us back to our band, but this will be a very good example. One of the things that I think that Hattie nails, and this is completely natural. She hasn't worked on this. Is a similar integrity to the song, and I remember after working with Hattie with this band for about 6 months, I was talking to a friend, and I kind of heard myself say what it was I thought about her, and I realized, oh yeah, that's it. What I'm saying, which was, I said to him, when Hattie's singing, there's nothing about her. There's no me about her. She's
Yeah.
dedicated to the song and the music, and that aligns her entirely with Joni. That and when you see Joni singing, there's no, yeah, she say there's no frivolity about it. She is 100% committed, and I think in her writing, as you say, it's also in the music, this commitment to a spirit of a song. She's got all these tunings. Apparently, she's used 41 different open tunings, which is phenomenal. So what she does is sort of basically create a bass sound for the song, and that gives her the vibe, the spirit of that song, and then that song is consistent because she's in a way slightly tied down to this this kind of bass tuning of the that she's created for that song. But they're fascinating. Some of them are like really low, the tunings, and known as a slack tuning because the bottom string is literally slack, like on Black Crow, for example. I think she tuned it down, the bottom string down to B flat from an E, so flat 5, and that's really loose. And it just gives a sound that you cannot get from a regular tuned guitar. Now I play the whole. Sorry, Graham, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tune my guitar to a regular tuning. Hattie has about 6 different tunings over any one gig. So she has 4 guitars and she has to retune in the gaps, in the breaks, or when we do the instrumentals, she goes and retunes her guitars. But I've had to kind of learn to try and play these nice voicings, which means I'm playing things like this on the guitar while she's basically doing that. And that's how Joni played. If you watch her playing, a lot of her movements are like that, this kind of shape. But the initial shape, she just does that. It makes a very lovely chord. And
I don't think we've had guitar tuning shapes on the podcast before. It's a shame that it's not actually going out in video as well. It's excellent.
Right.
It's excellent. But I was going to say, if Charles asks one final question, and then ask one final question before we wrap up, if that's all right, Pete.
Yeah.
This might seem a trivial question, but you very pointedly say not a tribute band. And I say good to that because I get very frustrated by tribute bands, not least that they block the passage of new musicians who are actually hugely talented and doing original things with its established music. What do you think of tribute bands?
That's a really interesting question as well. I mean, in concept, I'm not much of a fan, really. And I thought I would never go and see one, but I have to admit, I did go and see a band called The Musical Box, which is
Genesis.
Genesis, that's right.
They've been to York, I think, to the Barbican.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they sound basically as good as Genesis did, and well, I know all the top tribute bands do. As I say, I thought I would never go and see a tribute band, but I did go to see them, and it was absolutely incredible, and it was kind of great to hear those songs again. But I wouldn't want to do it. I definitely would not want to do it because, yeah, I feel just completely hampered by having to play the same notes night after night.
So that's interesting, isn't it? That the actual experience as a musician, not wanting to do it, but actually you can still step back from that as an audience member and enjoy it. That's an interesting distinction, that.
It is an interesting distinction. I would, if I'd gone to hear the Musical Box play The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, as they did, and they'd they kind of interpreted it, I don't think I would have been best pleased. But
No, exactly.
That's great. That's great.
but I couldn't do it with Hejira. Well, I just wouldn't do it. It's
No.
either the way we do it or not. And I really enjoy trying to strike that balance between maintaining the integrity of the song and making it our own thing. And actually, I have to say, pretty much every gig we get people coming up to us and totally unsolicited saying that very thing. They say, "This is great. You're really keeping the spirit of the song, but you're doing it in your own way." And that's one of the best things to hear coming from an audience member.
Yeah, going slightly off piece as a final question, Pete. And I know that the band is so brilliant. You very quickly moved up to play good-sized theatres around Britain, which is fantastic. But you yourself, being a proper jazz man for many years, I mean, I saw Wayne Shorter live, and I've seen Wynton Marsalis, and more recently, a modern jazz band, The Comet is Coming, who were fantastic. But I believe you actually saw Miles Davis's final gig.
Yeah, I did actually. I'm pretty sure it was his final gig. It was at Paris, and in a festival called Around Miles Davis, and I'm pretty sure it was the last gig. The kind of the very, very final headlining gig when he had his current band, or his band of the day, I should say, which sounded fantastic. And then he had this sort of glorified jam session, which, to be honest, what didn't sound fantastic. Which was a crying shame, because he had, all these great players from his history, from Dave Holland, Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, John McLaughlin, Wayne Shorter, Zawinul. I mean, it was a total all-star thing. But I think Miles had always said he didn't want to go back. He never wanted to look back. And my feeling was, looking at the way his body language was, that he really didn't want to do it, but he'd been paid a phenomenal amount of money and couldn't resist. I don't know if I'm right with that, but the vibe was great. And if you watch it on the telly, it was televised, and you can find it on YouTube. I've never looked, but if you do, you can see that what I was saying there about Miles's vibe was not really very pleasant.
Perhaps what we need next is Hejira playing Miles Davis.
Yeah, I'm glad you're joking.
Excellent.
No, I was going to say, I have done it at my jazz club that I run, the Spin in Oxford. I have done one night. We did I can't remember which anniversary it was, but we did play the whole of Kind of Blue as a gig, which was fantastic. It was really great.
I love Miles Davis, so I would have loved that night. Anyway, Pete, it's been fantastic talking to you. And Hejira is such a fantastic live experience that even if you don't like Joni Mitchell, I would recommend anybody who likes music to go and see it. It's just superb night of musicianship. It's really, really enjoyable. So many thanks, Pete.
Well, thanks, and thanks for your support and all your comments. I really appreciate that, and we'll keep in touch.
And happy travels on the road.
Lovely. Thank you so much, and we'll
All
see
the very best. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I was late. Sorry I was
no worries.
But I think we've made up for it, and all the very best. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Graham.
Anyway, there's a new film out, if we're still working, that is, and it's by Richard Linklater.
What's it called? Because I haven't seen it.
It's not actually been made.
So this is a concept.
No, it's about to be made. It's called Nouvelle Vague.
And
yeah, it's set in 1960 in France, and it's about all those great French New Wave film directors that I love, including Jean-Luc Godard, Claude Chabrol, Francois Truffaut, etc., etc.
Is he doing a documentary?
No, it's going to be a fictional recreation of it. So that could be absolute brilliant. But it's not done yet. But I'm looking forward to it comes out.
So it's not made. We don't know who's in it.
No.
Is he going to make it with French actors?
I would have thought so. Yeah.
So we were discussing, Graham, before we somehow interrupted ourselves, Glastonbury, and my Glastonbury this year was very brief, and it was Coldplay, just as a curiosity, and the fifth time they've headlined saying it's like my version to what you do when you keep having to top what you did before as a headline act. I don't think has any other band ever headlined Glastonbury 5 times.
No, I know, but numbers don't make anything great.
I'm not suggesting greatness here, Graham. What I'm suggesting is they're under pressure to top every performance they've done before. So what I watched was a band going very much over the top in every way for pretty well every song. And
well, that's what you want if you're headlining Glastonbury at the Pyramid Stage anyway.
You've hit on the key thing, is that it isn't about intimacy, even though the one moment I really liked actually was when they just did what Rolling Stones do and U2 do, which is they just get together on a small separate stage.
A campfire session.
A campfire session with the emphasis on the fire, not the camp. So it was pretty over the top. My other frustration, and actually that was my frustration, because I admire actually trying to go for it, because it has to be visually spectacular. When you are trying to keep the attention of people in a field and not make them want to go off and see another act. Whereas the Sunday night headliner, apparently, she was losing people song by song. Scissor, is that what she called?
Scissor says.
Yeah, so the scissors apparently could have been a shorter set. It could have been scissor cut.
Or it could have been a pair of scissors. I
wasn't going to see it. Anyway.
Didn't we used to write for Cannon and Ball?
Anyway, so as a judgment of how Glastonbury was, well, I would have liked the BBC, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my television set that I couldn't see the names of the songs, which are normally put when the next song is played, or who the guest is. I couldn't see who the guests were, which was somewhat frustrating because there were so many guests, choirs, even Michael J. Fox popped up, which will recognise him.
This all sounds like the exact opposite of PG Harvey, who was on the Pyramid Stage on the Friday at about 6 p.m. and she was utterly intimate. And although she was utterly mesmerising, she was a class act. It was like watching a work of art in slow motion. Imagine PJ doing that set as the headliner at 10 o'clock at night.
It wasn't apparently very busy.
It was reasonably busy. By the standards of Glastonbury 30 years ago, it was busy. By the standards of the last 15 years, when it's become a mega festival, it was a bit quiet. But
this was about where you put bands. So apparently, Sugar Babes were not on the Pyramid Stage, and people were desperate to see Sugar Babes. So in the strategy of who is on the Pyramid Stage and who isn't, there's a suggestion that just maybe Glastonbury misjudged on this. That
I heard that
we might want to see a cult star as great as PJ Harvey, but probably not a headliner, actually. In terms of later in the evening. So why not stick away? She may have find more to her fans.
I heard that Sugar Babe fans end up having to see the Idols.
I love that.
I will be joking, but I think it was a different day anyway. But I did see Idols, and the first half an hour of Idols on Friday night was so good. It was like one of the best things I've seen in my life. But then they're so aggressive.
Does anyone do intensity more than them now?
They're so they're so aggressive as well, and so energetic that after half an hour of being pummeled over the head, I was like bludgeoned into being senseless. And I thought, please play something quieter. And thankfully, they played tracks of Tank, which is their most musical album. And I thought, oh, that's better. I couldn't take an hour and a half of being.
They did that when they played Jules Holland.
That's true, yeah.
They did one making you think, please, can we have another song by you, but not that one.
They were certainly better than Dua Lipa, who headlined on Friday night at the Pyramid Stage. And I was expecting something with great pop songs, and instead I got you got a very professional singer, very well choreographed dance routines, and sort of like average pop songs. Not particularly. They weren't any better than Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift, mind you. They're huge, so I must be wrong. And so I was just a bit underwhelmed. I preferred LCD Sound System, being an old timer, and they were on the Friday. And James Murphy's the exact opposite of Dua Lipa or Shania Twain or even Coldplay. He's like a sort of like New York wino who's wanted on stage and is fronting up the best electro punk dance band on the planet, and he just meanders around, but again with a lot of passion. And the crowd reaction was amazing. They were basically reacting to how good LCD Sound System were. They weren't sort of leaping and down because it was their favourite song. It was like the better the band got live, the more the crowd got into it. So it was a great Glastonbury moment. LCD Sound System, so I enjoyed that a lot.
So what would make a Dua Lipa gig better?
Just better songs. Better songs and some element of personality that isn't showbiz. She was going, oh, this is my dream. I was dreaming as a small child. Actually, she's British, so I shouldn't put an American accent. And I thought, oh, get off. This is worse than Julie Andrews in Sound of Music. But no, that's what the kids like. So again, like an old person talking. What the kids like. The kids are all right.
Oh, that could make a lyric, right?
Really? Not so sure it could. I think it's been done.
Sued, and sued. So, Graham, next year, of course, there is a Glastonbury. The following year, there's a fallow year, no Glastonbury.
Oh, yeah, they're planting
So
vegetables, turnips, radishes, cauliflower, I believe.
Do you have that on good authority from the Evis family?
I have it from Emily herself.
Do you really?
Of course not.
Well, there we are. That's Glastonbury, Graham. And would I go back to Glastonbury on the evidence of what I saw?
Well, I would, because I checked out the main stage headliners or the main stage program for each day.
Yes.
And it was a real interesting eclectic mix. It didn't feel like someone who just ticked boxes or was looking for the biggest acts on the planet. It felt hand curated. It felt like Emily had actually picked the acts to try and make an interesting mixture. It wasn't predictable lineup.
What it has to do, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was quite impressed. And BBC's coverage has expanded massively on TV and on iPlayer. You could see so much of it.
Whenever I was on tuning into either Radio 2 or Radio 6 Music, they were doing the chatting
You
about
have to go to iPlayer. They're trying to push it to iPlayer. You have to live in the world of iPlayer, and then you see loads of things.
So I just kept hearing people talking about themselves and people saying, I've just seen and I've just done this. And I thought, I'm not interested in what you've done. I want to hear music.
I know. Charles, people talking about what they've done, what they've seen, and what they think is the last thing that we want.
Apart from the fact that we've just been spending our time doing that, Graham.
No, our opinions matter, Charles. That's the essential thing. Anyway.
So iPlayer is maybe the way to be in future. Okay, well, I'll learn that for next year. And thank you very much, Graham, for a splendid night.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you again to Pete Oxley from Hejira, and all the very best. Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.